And I would dare say that if you grab a lot of the analysis that's already out there, because there's a lot of information, public information and analysis of companies and industry analysis, you're going to get very different versions. I mean, there are still people out there that think that, there's going to be not only ample supply, but an excess of supply. Okay. And I completely disagree with that, but I might be completely wrong. So, I mean, I do think lithium is going to go up.
Hey, we're back with another episode of the Deals podcast with Lucho, Saenz and Paola Rojas. And today we're going to talk about how Sigma Lithium is really for sale as Albemarle's final and best bid for Liontown. Well, Gina Reinhardt got some little 7%. We're going to cover some viewer Q&A. And close with Albemarle's best strategic options. So, hello, Lucho. How are you?
Hey, Paola. Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Got a lot to talk about. Get started.
So we've seen a significant fall on lithium prices in the last bid. So this is the second fall this year, and lithium stocks are not doing that great either. And at the same time, in between this whole situation, big money is still putting a lot of bets. And what do you see with this sort of dynamic that we're seeing?
Well, I mean, a market wouldn't be a market if it didn't have volatility, right? But really, to think that the medium to long-term outlook for lithium, whether it be lithium prices or lithium stocks, is one of keep on going down or stay at depressed levels or lower levels than they've been in the past, I think is being totally naive, right? I mean, everything indicates otherwise. The fact that there's volatility is a reflection of the lithium market still being very young and developing. Okay, and that in itself will bring a lot of volatility. But one of my favorite quotes, I won't go through the whole thing, but it says something like, tomorrow's sun will rise, either in splendor or behind the massive clouds, but it will rise. Okay, lithium prices will go up. The question is how much, and where is the point where that price is a long-term price that is a sustainable and fair long-term price. And that's the same with stocks, right? The difficulty, we'll go that into the questions, the difficulty is which stocks to pick, where to go, where to look for, and stuff like that. So, we'll cover that in the podcast.
All right, so we wanted to start with Sigma. So Sigma is a Canadian lithium developer. It's focused on its Brazilian project called Grota do Cirilo. They are valued at a bit under 5 billion. It's a relatively young company. After months of speculation, Sigma announced that they are reviewing a number of strategic approaches. They've said the companies, they meant both the Canadian listed and the Brazilian subsidiary, and the project have attracted interest from potential strategic partners, including global industry leaders in the energy, auto, batteries, and lithium refining industries. All right, so there's a lot of things that we can unpack.
I mean, it's sort of a lot of it becomes old news when they start producing, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is that there are very few newcomers into this market, right? And those that are newcomers have typically taken a very long time to get into production. For example, Lithium Americas, in Cauchari in Argentina. So, once you start producing and that, mixes with the current market dynamics and potential interest and the outlook and stuff like that, I think Ana Cabral, the CEO of Sigma, really made a great job of putting her company in the perfect storm, because that first to market advantage, that is something that, you and I talked about when we were looking at the project in Maricunga in Chile, right? In 2010, so 13 years ago. First to market was very important. It's even more important now that the reality has set in that lithium projects are scarce, and there is going to be a huge increase in demand. Doesn't matter how much. I mean, even if you go with the more conservative estimates of the increase in demand, it's still going to outstrip supply. So, the market has already given Sigma a $5 billion valuation, which might sound like a hell of a lot, but anyone who is a player or wants to be a player in the lithium market is going to be looking at those kinds of opportunities. So, I mean, it's not surprising that that Sigma has finally announced that it's out there. Because first of all, it's not surprising that they have people looking at them. And they've obviously received more than one expression of interest. And all they're saying is, yes, indeed, they are looking at us. We have received proposals. We are considering them, because it would be crazy not to. Okay. And, we're willing to listen. And it's a little bit of an invitation of, if you haven't seen us yet, maybe it's the right time, because, you might lose your chance. It's optionality. Yeah. They're taking advantage of that, and that's very intelligent.
Yeah. Okay, so why does this still matter, whether for scale, concentration, country? And in my thoughts on that is, early this year we were hearing that Tesla was an interested party. Now, as you said, since then they now are in production, actually getting product out, and they have a very clever marketing. I call it market, but it's the actual product. They call it 000 green lithium. They're doing really well at creating a new category, and they're saying, okay, so the lithium that we produce is different from the lithium that other people produce, because it's got net zero. They say that it's net zero, so they're not generating any impact, which is it's an interesting proposition. I would like to know more about that. If we go a little bit deeper into who is making the decision, the fund that started this venture, a few years ago, still owns 44% of the company. And this is a Brazilian fund that was formed, and it's actually owned by the CEO and the former co-CEO. They were so the largest investor is this fund. But we learned through media that they are divorcing, so there's a split there, but it's contentious because the company is suing this guy because he's allegedly stole secrets, and he's trying to meddle into this sale process. So this is kind of telling us that the sale process, or the interest in selling, has been going on for some time, right?
This creation of value of 5 billion Canadian dollars is relatively new, right? I mean, it's happened over the last 2 years, right? And that's a result of the work that management has done in bringing this online and getting the right approach, including the 000, as part of their value and their mission, right? All that does is it becomes even more attractive. It checks another box on the investors that are looking for that green element, Okay. And I'm sure that on the back of that, other producers, potential producers, junior companies that are just starting off are going to say, we're going to do the same or something similar. Because really the name of the game is to try to reach as wide a universe of investors as you can. And lithium has never had that, right? You know, you've had waves of interest in lithium, in the last 10, 15 years. And any company that was worth, I don't know, a couple $100 million 2 years ago and is today worth $5 billion. Okay. And I'm not telling you that's what it, but I mean, it's something like that, right? I mean, that's sort of how it evolved. So any company that has seen that kind of growth, management has to be looking at strategic alternatives if they're on the table. It would be, it's not only their fiduciary duty, it would be crazy not to do it. I mean, the possibility of taking money off the table was already in their minds a year ago when they were worth, 2 billion Canadian, so to speak.
I met this company in 2019. They were a completely different company. They were just, very, very new. And I was like, oh, Brazil is not super known. They don't produce a lot of lithium. I didn't really think much of it, really.
And that's what I refer to the perfect storm, right? I mean, you are in a time where you've seen $70,000 lithium carbonate price, and now you're what, at 30, 35,000, but you and I have seen 4,000. Okay, and some people talk about 100,000. Well, 4,000 is not going to happen again, right? And for a while, the long-term price was 10 to 12,000 before it hit 70,000. 70,000 might happen again, might not. Okay, but the price is somewhere in that range, and but the fact is that if you take a look at the demand and supply scenarios, particularly the demand scenario, lithium is hot. Every battery metal is hot.
All right. So to close this topic, who could these parties be? Because they don't say it's another miner. They say it's auto, it's battery. So it could be, a wide variety of parties. So I have three three bets. Which you can say yours. So my bets are Tesla. So I think there's actually something to those comments. So I think they can be talking to them. I think Stellantis has been insanely active in Latin America. They've done a few deals in Argentina. I think that could be another one. And then SQM, just because they want to have more variety in there. So those would be my three. What do you say?
I'm not even going to start to guess, to be honest.
But it's fun. Come on, throw three guesses. I'm not hoping to be right.
I never expected the General Motors Lithium Americas deal. Okay, I expected Tesla back in 2009, 2010, when I first talked to them about the project in Chile, to be one of the first to market in doing those kinds of deals and get very involved and be very aggressive. And that didn't happen. Okay. You mentioned the usual suspects, but I think there's a whole bunch of private equity money that's out there that is looking to get into this. And I think that, every automaker of importance is going to be looking to do what the automakers that have done deals have done already, GM and all the others. Okay. And when you talk about the producers, I mean, Livent, Albemarle, SQM, they all have to do something, right? Albemarle and SQM, as we will talk, I mean, have a golden opportunity to do something with Atacama Salar And that is the best lithium asset in the world, hands down, right? And that needs to be the focus for them. In the meantime, they can be looking at other things. But yeah, I think Sigma is in a fantastic position to take advantage of this kind of market.
Yeah.
And that $5 billion valuation, could end up being much higher if someone's really liking the project, and wants to pay up. For they're in a perfect position.
Yeah, no, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if they end up making a deal with some completely new party that we haven't seen so publicly. All right, if you are, for the viewers, if you're enjoying this rambling about deals that we enjoy so much doing, please subscribe and let us know if you wanna agree or disagree with what we're saying. Okay, so let's move on to Liontown. So they are developing, this is an ASX listed company. They are developing a project here in Western Australia, due to come in production next year. In March, Liontown rejected a 5.5 billion bid from Albemarle, and it was the third approach in 5 months. Albemarle has upped the offer to $3 per share, which comes down to about six something billion, 6.5 last week. Liontown said that Albemarle has a limited period of exclusive due diligence, and Albemarle said that they thought that it was they expected it to take about 4 weeks. So when we talk about this deal, why does it matter? Because of scale, concentration, risk, country. What are your thoughts on that?
One of the things that people are looking for is if they can find assets in more friendly jurisdictions, they will look for them, right? I mean, they will prefer them. A few companies that you and I are familiar with that are looking at things in Latin America and have always preferred Latin America to, the US or Canada, for that matter, because of permitting issues and stuff like that, are now looking at the US and Canada with different eyes because of the instability that you've had in Latin America for the last year or so in the different countries, but also because, the US and Canada are very much into the critical metals now. And the feeling is that, permitting and general investment climate is going to be easier, right? Australia is, a safe jurisdiction. It's going to be safer than Brazil. Hey, yeah. I mean, it's a lot more predictable than Argentina and even Chile, right?
Yeah.
So, that's going to command a premium, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that people aren't, people are still looking for copper and investing in copper in the Congo, right, in the DRC. Mm-hmm. And there's lithium projects, in Africa that are coming to market as well, and they're still going to be looking at that. But definitely in terms of jurisdiction and near-term production, etc., Liontown is one of the targets, and there aren't that many suitors out there that can write checks of that magnitude.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's the opportunity for those big check writers. We talked about, or we're, before, and we'll talk a little bit about Albemarle's investment of, I think, $100 and something million into, Patriot, right?
Yeah.
And that's putting money to work. I mean, you're going to see, I really think that you're going to see a lot more activity on the M&A side in lithium in the next 12 to 18 months. And it's going to come in many different sources and many different structures, and it's it's going to surprise us because it is a different market than the copper market, the gold market, because it's still a developing market. It's not mature yet, and to get into the market, it's going to require creativity and try to measure the levels of risk.
I agree with that. I think you said before that you didn't see the GM deal with Lithium Americas, and I think we can see all the surprises like that, and it was unexpected, just because of the size, but also because of the structure. So instead of just doing offtakes, which is what we were kind of used to, it's like, you do an offtakes, but I think we can see we could see some new structure, some creativity in an actual deal. All right, so so, and the other thing that happened just after this announcement, the announcement of this improved bid, which is the best and final, is that Gina Reinhardt, who is the richest woman in Australia and who runs Hancock Prospecting, which is a very significant iron producer. They bought 7.7% of Liontown, and she came out publicly saying that she's looking for something, like she's looking forward to being involved and to contribute to what's happening. So most people are seeing this as a potential roadblock. So the deal was pretty much done in probabilities before that, but with her participation, a lot of people are just thinking that she's gonna try and stop it or steer it in some way, and she's got a big wallet to do something, and she appears to be interested in this particular theme, because even though her focus is iron, she has started accumulating significant positions in a rare earth company and in another sort of energy transition metals technology firm. So that's Arafura Rare Earths and Vulcan Energy. So I think that's an interesting point, and I don't know if you have any thoughts about that particular aspect. Do you?
Well, I mean, you don't, given the ticket size, right? I mean, you don't take, a 7% stake in something that's worth what, $5-6 billion, just to be a pain in the behind, right? I mean, there's some thought about that, and maybe it's a way of trying to put a foot in the water in the lithium sector, right? I mean, it's a well-known fact that Fortescue, for example, is all over Latin America looking for copper, right? And that's outside their typical business remit, right? So that it's not surprising that someone that is already in the commodity space wants to get into something that's clearly interesting, and is willing to write a big check. I mean, it sounds a lot more strategic of, I want to be involved, and if this deal is going to happen, I want the buyer to know that I want to be involved, and that means being involved in the overall business. So it just adds more interest to a deal that was interesting when Albemarle made their first bit, but was clearly not over it.
Okay. So yeah, I would agree that if it wasn't for the, I mean, even though, but with knowing that she's got these other sort of things that she's sort of setting up, I would think that she's trying to. Obviously, iron is I don't know, for Australia and for them is huge, but she's not being shy about putting some money, and I think she's setting up for something else, not just, as you said, not for being difficult. Although she's gonna have opinions, which is good. Like, you want someone who's contributing. All right. So if we close this deal with what do we see as impacts on the wider markets and commodity after this deal? Let's assume that it does eventuate, it does close. What would be a short comment on what you see as a result of this deal?
Well, I mean, the largest producer is getting larger, which puts a lot of pressure on the other guys. I mean, the peers, if you will, of which there are only a couple, to do a deal, right? But if I'm Livent, I'm thinking, what can I do, right?
Well, they merged. Livent already merged with Alchem, so that's on the side.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that if you don't have organic growth opportunities, you've got to be looking outside, right? And there's a lot of places to look at. And I, Albemarle, if they do that, and I do think that there's a high level of probability that the deal with Liontown will close. They've got this investment in Patriot, that gets put in the door on something in Canada. Again, a nice jurisdiction. Maybe they've got their hands full, but I think all of the others have got to be looking what their next deal is going to be, right? And even Lithium America is already post splitting the company. They've got to look at what the next steps are, both with the North American side and as they go ahead with Thacker Pass, and what they do in Latin America, because they're perfectly positioned. And I think people will back that management, both the North American one and the South American one, into growth, because again, they're proven developers.
Let's take one question from viewers. Matthew Hunt asked, if one has no investments in lithium, where should we be thinking about putting money to work? Miners, producers, which jurisdictions, etc. So let me just start by saying my view is kind of diversify within the commodity. So I like to have some exposure to growth. So you'll have some explorers always, but because the sector has been growing and it's becoming, there are more options. Still not that many, but there are more options in terms of companies producing the in terms of jurisdictions. You need to have Latin America. I know Australians are super proud of having such a big position here, but I believe you need to have some Latin America and a little sprinkle of new jurisdictions. What would you say?
I'm going to be a bit more pragmatic about this. If you want exposure to lithium, buy lithium forwards, okay, or buy ETFs, lithium ETFs, right, which will have a variety of exposures to different companies and stuff like that. And I say this because miners, there are very few, and you have to question what the right valuation is. So I mean, I do think lithium is going to go up, and now you have a forwards market that again is in development and still has to mature, but it is a forwards market, and I've always liked that, and you have at least a couple of ETFs out there that are taking exposure, equity exposure.
Yeah, there's
That
a
again,
few. There's a few.
they take, yeah, they take the the element of analysis that you might have as an individual investor.
We wanted to close today with your comments or your opinion into what would be or what are the best strategic options for Albemarle. We've been talking about them for many episodes. We've loved having to cover them because they're doing so much now.
I still believe that the Atacama Salar is hands down the best lithium resource in the world. And SQM and Albemarle are there already producing. And the Chilean government, through its new lithium legislation, strategy, whatever you want to call it, has pretty much made an open invitation to SQM and Albemarle to sit down and talk about what's going to happen in future. And they're two different things, right? Because SQM has contracts coming up to expire now, relatively soon. So they have a more pressure to get something done versus Albemarle that has a longer time in terms of their existing contracts. So the pressure is off. That doesn't mean that you're going to take that time. I mean, the time is now to sit down and negotiate something with the Chilean government. And if that negotiation is successful with the Chilean government by Albemarle and allows them, not in terms of time, but in terms of an expansion in the short to near term, depending on what they have to give in exchange, that's by far the best prize. I mean, that is their first prize. So I'd be surprised if they're not doing it. And they probably got a lot of very bright and expensive advisors, looking at what can be done. But it's like expanding your own garden. You're gonna stay where you feel at home, and where you clearly have a great relationship with the Chilean state as a whole, and with this government in particular. So I think that's where the opportunity lies. And it's interesting that they're doing this deal with Liontown and putting this money into Patriot and stuff like that. That shows that they're not keeping their eggs in their own basket, and that's actually in itself a negotiating strategy against the government. I mean, that's putting your money to work, the cash that you have, putting that cash to work. A renewed deal with Atacama doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to cost them money right now. They're not going to have to write a big check, but restructuring a deal that would give them more production out of Atacama is by far the best price. So that's my story.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. All right, I think we're gonna leave it there. We look forward to your comments, especially this one. If you have any guesses for the viewers, if you have any guesses on who the potential parties for Sigma, who could be the interested parties. All right, Lucho, take us out.
Well, good to see you once again. Interesting conversation. It took so long that the sun went down, but we look forward to seeing you guys in a couple of weeks. If you liked if you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe to the channel. Send it to your friends, family, whoever, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
All right. Bye. Lucho and I will be back in 2 weeks. Until then, here's another related episode you may like to watch next. Bye!